Hello, I am William Jamal Wright,
And I'm Hattie.
and this is our podcast, HattieJo. What are we doing? So, how are you doing?
Doing all right? How are you doing?
Doing pretty good. Missed a couple of months here,
Just a few.
but we're back, better than ever, and we may do a couple just to catch up and figure
Maybe.
it out. Yeah, but we are here on Thanksgiving. My birthday month, November, Thanksgiving month.
Yeah, today's not Thanksgiving itself. It's just Sunday.
Oh no,
after
we just
Thanksgiving.
we just finished Thanksgiving, but
Yeah.
Thanksgiving
Yeah.
is in this month. So this episode we're actually going to talk about like my football season and kind of the journey that we went on this year. Hattie had the up close and personal view of all the games
Sure did.
on the weekend.
Got to go to every single home game plus one away game.
Well,
Actually, I went to 2 away games because one away game was moved to home, and then there's one that was close.
yeah, that was right up the a few blocks down the street. So
I went to a lot of games.
Yeah, and we actually played 7 games this season. The final one got canceled just because we didn't have enough players due to injuries, so we had to forfeit the last game. But overall, I would say like we didn't win any games, and I think coming into it, I was hopeful that we might be able to win one game or be competitive over the course of the season, but we just there's a lot of growth that needs to take place because this was a first year program, and so we are a 1A school, a charter school, and so there's 9th through 12th graders. And 1A football here in Arizona, you play 8-man. And so it's 8-on-8. And so the teams are typically a lot smaller. If you have 25 kids, you have a lot of kids.
Yeah, you didn't have 25 kids.
And definitely, so to begin the season, we had right at 16. Well, actually we had 14 to begin the season, and then one came, and so it was very our roster was very much in flux throughout the whole season because we had a couple of students that joined middle of preseason camp, and then we had another student that joined in halfway through the season, and so we ended the season, we had 15 total players. And so at the beginning of fall camp, we probably had right at 14. And so it was I had the thought process coming into the season that if we went into a game and we didn't have 11 players, then we would have to forfeit.
Right.
And I told the AD this in the summer just because you're playing football. It's a lot of the kids that are on the team is their first time experiencing football. And so with that being said, I expected to have injuries and
you expect to have injuries in football regardless.
Yeah, even if you are an expert, you play at a high level, or you're any type of high school, anytime you play football, you expect to have injuries.
Right. But particularly so, I do think there is an extra element of injuries when they've literally never played football before. They don't have techniques down. They don't understand this is practice. I don't need to hit them so hard. All those things. Or learning how to fall.
Yes.
That's an important skill in and of itself, So
it
all
is
those things
a skill.
add on to the expected injuries when you have such a young new team.
Yeah, and so we kind of started this process back in the spring, and we literally started out with just working out for 2 weeks and kind of getting them understanding that they got to build up some muscle mass to be able to play football, and then the whole summer we went through lifting weights. We had a 2-week spring practice where we tried to do some football stuff and introduce like some plays. But I would say overall that was like, it was good in that like we kind of got some of the like warm up structural stuff down, and kind of the routine and things that we wanted to do. But it was definitely like, it wasn't where we need to be in order to like be competitive, or even like thinking about like, all right, well, like when you're starting something from the like ground up, like nobody knows what to expect. And so like, hopefully like we're losing 3 seniors, or no, 1, 2. So we're losing 3 seniors. And so I'm hopeful that like everybody that was on the team, we had the majority sophomores and freshmen. And so I'm hoping that everybody that like played this year that was a sophomore or freshman, they all come back, and then like they bring somebody with them, because we were such a young team. And literally none of the seniors had ever like played football before. I think we had 2 people on the team that had, out of our 17 or 15 players. 15, yeah. We had 2 players that like had actually like put on a football equipment and like played the game against other people that had on football equipment. So like we kind of like, we had there was definitely like throughout the summer, we had summer workouts, and like I told the guys this coming into it, like the way the program looks this year won't be what it looks like in the future. We're gonna slowly build it and like slowly ask more of them each and every year. And so this past summer, we did 3 workouts a week in the summertime. And so we would go Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and we would go in the afternoon, and we basically do about like an hour and a half, where we do 45 minutes of lifting and 45 minutes of on the field like work. And so that went all the way through the summer. And then we had a parents meeting, where I got all the parents together, and we kind of talked about going into the season and kind of what to expect throughout the season. And then we had our season starting with fall camp. So it's an interesting experience, very frustrating at times, because like I wasn't quite sure what to expect. I had hopes that like we could be successful, but there were definitely some like, it caused me to like look at everything and kind of reevaluate what I was teaching and like how I was teaching it, because like when everybody is so new, you kind of have to like literally start from the beginning. And we did the first couple of days of camp. It was probably like the first week actually. We just did like, for the first 20 minutes, we just did football one-on-one stuff, where I like I talked to them about like penalties and like flags and like what you can and can't do.
Here are the rules.
Yeah. So like, here are the rules of football, and that you need to know. And so it'll be good to see like, once we've started workouts now. We're a 1A school, like I said earlier, so most of the kids are playing like basketball right now, but all those kids that are not playing basketball or doing another sport like soccer here in Arizona is like winter sport.
At least men's soccer is.
Yeah, girls too. Yeah, it's all like a winter sport, so it takes place during the same time as like basketball season for the most part.
Actually, that kind of makes sense, because I feel like either it's going to have to be in fall. Well, I guess there's no school in the hottest months of the year. Never mind. Yeah. I was thinking that maybe they don't want to have, strenuous running around for 90 minutes in the 110 degree weather, but that's not happening regardless of what semester it's in.
Yeah.
So, well, I think going back to your concepts about successful seasons versus not, didn't win any games. I very much was not expecting any wins to be had. But, and I will say from an outsider, I don't see the practices. I don't see the behind the scenes. All I see, and I certainly don't see other teams. I'm not watching tape, like, absolutely not. All I see is Friday night lights, right? And I felt that there was a very consistent increase in performance as this season went on.
Yeah.
And I felt that, and I was measuring that mostly by just watching them and being like, does it kind of look like they might have a clue or does it not?
Yeah.
And secondly, by the differential between points scored versus points against. And that, like, was almost a linear, like, every single game that I watched, the gap between points scored against you versus the points you scored got smaller, except for maybe like one. You know what I mean? But, like, I think that's really good. If you had 7 games that you actually played, I probably came to 4 of them, maybe 5, depending on. I feel like I'm actually shocked you said there's only 7 games this season because I feel like I went to at least 4 or 5.
Yeah, and so then there were 2.
Yeah, because I went to 3 home games. Because the last game was going to be a home game, but I wasn't going to go.
Yeah.
I went to 3 home games plus the 2 away games, so that's 5.
Yeah, and then there was 2 like travel.
Far.
Yeah.
Oh wow!
Bus travel.
I went to so many games in proportion. But anyway, like, I think that that's really saying something. And also, you know, as I watched, it did seem like they had a clue more as the season went on.
Yeah.
And even if it wasn't like, okay, every single play they had a clue, it was like on the whole.
You could see, like.
Yeah, you could see. And for someone like, I'm not like your mom who's watched football, you know, since the day you were born. So I don't have a very good grasp of, like, and I feel the same way when people watch gymnastics that are not gymnastics watchers. Like, I can see 2 routines, and to the casual viewer, they're like, wow, those both looked great. And I'm like, absolutely not. Like, this one did all these great things, and this one had all these, right? Like, I can see that because I'm very acclimated to the sport.
Yes.
And so I fully recognize that that's not the case. But I think it takes, in that regard, an even bigger kind of improvement for the casual observer to not just be like, this one team is amazing and this other team is just getting their butts kicked. But to actually see an improvement, I think that says a lot. And it was really funny. So his mom came, was it the very first game?
Yeah, it was the first game of the season.
His mom was visiting us in Arizona, and so she came to the game. We watched it together. We had a grand old time chatting away. But she very much, you know, she'd call out the penalties before the refs would. She'd, you know, they'd blow a whistle and I'd be like, what's going on? And she'd be like, oh, it's this, you know, or like, blah, blah, blah. Or, you know, she'd see them lined up and she'd be like, where's the coverage? You know, like, it's hilarious how familiar she is with the game of football. And she was making the comment that the guys on your team just looked scared, right? Which I would be if this is my first time, like you said, putting on football equipment, playing an organized game against other people putting on football equipment. And I think that attitude of like, oh my gosh, I'm scared, I've never done this before, I don't know what to do, that was palpable and totally decreased as the season went on.
Yes.
And I think that's a really big thing to think about because, you know, some people are going to have skills, some are not. Some people, even if they have skills, have just no experience, and some have tons, right? But if you can get your athletes to a place where they feel comfortable with what they're doing, and they feel confident in their abilities with what they're doing, like, to me, that's an enormous win. Even if you know that with their 1.5 years experience, they're never going to really put up a giant fight against a team that's had a program for 10 years and recruit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that to be able to get to that place in one season shows a lot of effort and a lot of great coaching. So I was really impressed.
Yeah, and we definitely like got a lot of reps, and I feel like we kind of figured out like a nice little happy medium. And so like I would say probably like the 3rd weekend, I kind of like started to understand like, all right, we got to find some way to like get some joy and get some like fun out of this. And so we turned like our Thursday practices into like competition days. And so either the coaching staff or the players, we would let them pick teams. And we would just compete in like different football stuff. Maybe like a punt, pass, and kick competition. And we would always end the day with our like gladiator bowl, which is something we used to do in high school. And we would do it like
call it a Rebel Bowl.
Yeah, so the Rebel Bowl, actually it was just, I don't know what we called it, because it wasn't the Rebel Bowl. The Rebel Bowl was something that you did in the spring.
Okay.
Yeah, that was like the end of spring practice. Like we would draft, the seniors would draft teams, and then like you would compete.
Oh, like you'd have a
like spring game. Yeah. And so that was our Rebel Bowl, but the game, I can't remember what it was called, but like we call it Gladiator Bowl here. And so we basically, like, you get 4 downs to score. You can throw it backwards, you can throw it forward, and you just get to like see the guys like have some fun and like
make it happen.
Compete with each other. And so that was like good to see, and kind of like coming to that realization of, all right, like we're already like, there's some fear, there's some like, you're physically like experiencing some things you haven't ever experienced in your life. And so like we've got to find some way here to like create some like fun and enjoyment out of this, because ultimately like this should be like a good experience. Yeah, right. It should be a good experience. And so we turn Thursdays into competition Thursdays. And like I'm really like, hopefully all of the players that like were on the team and the underclassmen last year, they all come back, and like we've kind of tried to like put the thought in their process that they got to get some of their buddies out, because I really do think like the more, like, of course the more players you have, like the less likely it is, first of all, that like you're gonna get hurt because you have to play less plays.
Correct. You can swap more people in and out.
Yeah, like we'll have more like bodies to like practice with, and we can get more reps at practice. And so I would say like going into this second year, that is probably like our number one like top priority, is figuring out like trying to get more players to come back next year. Get all the players that were there last year, get them to come back.
To come back.
Get them to come back, and then also get all of our like remaining players to recruit like some new guys to come and join us. And like I'm hopeful that we can continue and build it the right way. We did a couple of community service outreach things this year, which were kind of the highlight, or for me, it just felt good to like kind of have the highlights of the year. We went to the St. Mary's food bank near downtown Phoenix, and we made basically boxed up food for families, and then we also put on like a youth football camp for all the Archway students. And so that was like a great experience. It was free for all the kids. They came out, and we put a grade level with each year. And so the seniors got the kindergartners and first graders. And then the juniors got the second and third graders. And then the sophomores got the fourth graders. And then the freshmen got the fifth graders.
Nice.
Yeah, because Archway, like our Archway goes up to fifth grade, and so it's kind of like, since the seniors, this is their last year, they get to work with the youngest, and hopefully like those fifth graders, they stay with the school and become freshmen when those juniors, or when the freshmen now are seniors, and so like that is the hope. And we continue to build it and do it the right way, and just kind of increase our school spirit and the community aspect of it.
Well, there was definitely several moms that I would talk to, because I'm sitting there by myself and people would just kind of chat with me, that, you know, I'd be talking to them, and I'm like, oh, like, who's your son out there? And they're like, oh, none of them. Like, my kid's an Archway student, and they just really want to come, and I love this, that there's this community aspect, and we can all do this, and da-da-da. And I was shocked. I was like, you don't even have a kid playing and you're here. Yeah, you know, like there was multiple of them. And then I was also really, one of my favorite parts, I was really impressed kind of on that same vein of a lot of archery students wanting to be there, and it's several students from your class would come up to me and be like, hey, I'm, you know, in Mr. Wright's class and da 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 da, and students from that were in your class last year, you know, and all this, like I feel like I've met like 10 to 12 students, and I'm just like, what are these random third graders and fourth graders like doing? But it's because they just, going back to that community aspect, it's a fun thing to do. It's part of their school spirit. You know, their friends are there. They want to be there. They want to support you. You know, it's and I think that's really great that there is a way to do that for them to be kind of more involved in the school and to kind of instill that school spirit early.
Yes.
And I think it's great that the parents are able to support that. And you know, the games were really fun. Like, there's no band, there's no cheerleaders, but you know, it was still really fun to be there. And it's good weather, and it's a nice area. Do you know what I mean? There's plenty of space for the kids that are not actually competing, to run around and like burn off energy. They generally always had a food truck of some kind that would come, and so you could buy yourself a little snack or whatever. They have concession stand. Like, everybody was having a great time at these things. So anyway, I just thought that was really cool, and I really enjoyed that aspect myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I do, just because I love this factoid, I do want to spend another minute, unless you have anything else to say, before we wrap up, talking about what I was telling my dad at Thanksgiving dinner the other day. Of like, so one game, this might have been the second to last game that you actually played, maybe it was the last game you actually played, but your quarterback was hurt. And it was like, you didn't know that they were hurt until Wednesday. So you really only had practice on Thursday to prepare for a game on Friday. And it was like, what do I do when my quarterback is out? And instead of being like, okay, someone's going to be backup QB, try to learn a zillion plays, it was like, everybody's going to play QB and everybody's going to learn a play or two, you know? And I thought that was a really smart way in crunch time circumstances to deal, right? Because like asking one person to learn a whole bunch of things is really asking a lot.
Yes.
In that limited time frame. Whereas asking one or two people, each person to learn one or two plays is much more reasonable. And I think somebody said it at dinner when we were chatting. I think it really helps the players to play a different position and see how it all works together. Or to see how, when I'm the QB, this aspect is really hard. So when I'm the, tight end, or when I'm the wide receiver, now I understand why sometimes I feel like, why didn't he throw it to me? Or, and maybe they're not getting that much thought process out of it in like one practice and one game. But I still do think there's a lot of value in having that shifting around and having that experience. And just a cool way for the team to kind of come together and rally.
It was definitely done out of necessity, because like we first of all, with a limited roster, like there wasn't enough time for like the player that we had was our backup quarterback. He also was like,
I'm sure he played other positions.
Yeah, he played other positions. So I was like, well, like he plays other positions and he knows the plays from the other position, but he doesn't know. But he doesn't know the play from like the quarterback position. So like, to ask him to go out here and do that, like, it isn't fair. And then I think we had also just like recently come back from a USC Trojans game. And
you and I had?
Yeah. And so like, that is what like put the thought process in my head, like seeing them like first of all, how fast they run plays. And then like, it seemed to me that like when they had a certain personnel group in, like, certain players they were running they were running a few plays, and like those players would run their plays, and then you would see like literally like just a mass exodus of players, and then another mass exodus of players are coming on, and then like those players were running a completely different like set of plays than like the previous players that just went out,
but still very quick, very fast, and it's a limited set.
Yes. And so like that is what like gave me that thought process of, we probably won't be I'm definitely not going to do it fast. And I'm definitely not going to do it quick, but like hopefully like we will give ourselves a chance to be like successful by having like a couple of guys learn like certain plays, and they know like if this person is in at quarterback, then like we're only doing this certain things, and I'm in this position and I'll do these things. Whereas if we have somebody else at quarterback, these are the only things that I'm worried about doing. And like, it's great, like in theory, but it definitely limits like the creativity you can have.
When you say it's great in theory, is that the strategy of having everybody learn one or two plays? Or
yeah, like having everybody learn one or two or three plays, it's very limiting in like the creativity you can have.
Oh, of course, but you're in like triage mode. You're like, how do we not forfeit this game? Like, how do we go out and actually have any hope of making any plays?
Like, but it's like that, and that I feel like that's kind of something that like we got to work on, is just being able to like be a little bit more creative and like expand our like repertoire. Expand the availability of plays, because that was definitely like a limiting factor for us, in that like there are only like so many plays that we could be able to run. And I think as a coaching staff, as the head coach, we've got to work on this spring and going into next year, expanding that like availability.
I think we talked a little bit about, you know, my first year as a cheerleader, like just the way that you learn these things is a skill in and of itself. Like our coach would be like, okay, we're learning a new dance. Here's like 7, 8 counts, and everybody would leave being like, yeah, I got this. And I'd be like, whoa, can we, I got like the first 2. Can we like go back? Can we review this? You know, and it's just because I just wasn't used to acquiring knowledge in this way. And it was a skill to be able to absorb, even if it wasn't that I could do the dance full out, but paying attention in a different way such that I knew the dance in my mind, and then I could go back somewhere and practice it if I need to. But like, I had absorbed all 7, 8 counts, right? Or absorbed all 10 or whatever it was. Whereas when I first started, I did not have the ability to absorb all of that as quickly. And then by the time I got to my sophomore year, it was like night and day different, because the coach didn't do anything different.
Yeah.
And it was like suddenly, oh, I'm not struggling anymore. Like I know this, I know. And you know, part of it helped that some of our dances remained the same. And I just had to learn a new position, right? Because you're in a different spot in the lineup. But that only changed like 25% of the dance, or it only changed, you know, maybe you'd hit a move on the 4 and now you're hitting a move on the 5 in the ripple, right? Like minimal tweaks as opposed to learning a completely new dance. So that helped. But I did really find myself able to learn and acquire the dances way faster. Like that was a skill in and of itself. And so I anticipate that it'll be similar with your players. Like the ability to absorb and learn a play is a skill that takes time to develop.
Yes.
And once they've had time practicing that skill, like now most of them have a season of it under their belts. And it's not like you're going to abandon all the plays you've just learned.
Yeah.
Right? So, you know, now they already have a little repertoire of some plays, and I think they'll continue to develop the skill of learning plays so that you can then expand that and have more flexibility in doing different things. Because I also imagine that in an ideal world, when you run a play, you have like a backup play. You know, like this is what we're intending to do, but I might like throw to this guy if the first guy doesn't work out or whatever.
Yes.
And so it's kind of that same thing where I would learn in the dances like little keys in my mind to jog my memory of what the next kind of set was. And I feel like the same thing can happen if you're like, oh, well, this play is kind of like that play, and so I really don't have to learn a whole new play. I just have to learn the second set is slightly different, or plan B is slightly different, or this is the same as that one, just like mirrored, or you know, like they'll have these little pathways in their mind that they can just kind of mold differently, as opposed to having to establish like completely new pathways from scratch. And so I hope that would be my guess, is that, you know, they'll start to in a couple years, you'll be able to teach a whole bunch more plays than you taught this year.
Yes.
Because they'll have a better skill at acquiring and learning plays.
Yeah. And that is definitely
the hope.
The hope.
So, yeah, I was really proud of you, babe.
Thank you. Well, that's kind of what we've been doing, a recap of my first football season as head coach of North Phoenix Gladiators. And now we're on to basketball season, where hopefully we'll have a little bit more success.
And that's what we're doing.
Deuces.